What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Maria Britos. And guys, it's finally spring here in the States for me and Maria. It's finally fall over there in Paraguay, Fede. And, certainly a lot has been talked about with this kind of different types of weather. Paraguay's actually been in the headlines recently because of some artists that have come through to the country. We've seen the concerts, the Asuncionico concert that was supposed to happen last year. It happens this year with the likes of 21 Pilots, Billie Eilish, Rosalia, Lil Nas X. But we're not here to talk about music. This is not a music podcast. We're here to talk about the Paraguayan football that's going on. Obviously, things to talk about with the national team. The first game for the national team this year in 2023, as they look to prepare for the World Cup qualifiers, which will also start later this year to qualify for the World Cup in 2026. We'll talk about what's been going on in the league as well, with some interesting results that could indeed swing an entire league race. So I'm definitely excited about that. I'm certainly excited about what's going to happen, of course, with this national team as we go into that. Fede, first on you, because, certainly it's been a busy few days for the Paraguay national team. Obviously, we also know the start of the World Cup qualifiers. It's an interesting qualifying process for the World Cup because obviously there's more teams. There's 48 as opposed to 32. So that means more spots for CONMEBOL to qualify to. I think it's like 6.5 or something like that in response in beforehand, which was 4.5. So this is a crucial year for the national team. And really just how they need to set up in order to qualify for this World Cup, which, believe it or not, is going to give them even more of an opportunity. If they don't do it there, then it feels like it's going to be very difficult for them to go to any World Cup these days.
Yeah, it has looked that way, especially how the year started off for the national teams. Not only the senior football team, but the rest also. Hi, Roberto. Hi, Maria. Hi, everybody listening. Like always, great to be back. Yeah, we got the first of the 5, I believe, marked on the FIFA calendar as dates to play friendlies on this year. This is going to be just the first one. I believe there's going to be a second one right before the qualifiers start. Now we know that calendar also from CONMEBOL. They gave it out. We know how the games are going to be played over the next 3 years. And with the Copa America right in the middle, right? So you know how it's distributed, you know how you're gonna play it when you play at home, when you play away. If you gotta play first, I believe Paraguay plays a lot of those combos of 2 games. They play away. It's gonna start in September. And yeah, we got some exciting games. We got more spots available. So I'm looking forward to it. We got a couple of new faces also on this Rojas. The coach knows pretty much everybody now, so I believe it's over as of tryouts, as of giving people opportunities. It's now or never for Cheloto also to try to get some results in, put people by his side. This is something that we've been saying for so long. As for the Rojas, but yeah, we're waiting for those wins. It's good to have the boys back in town. It's good to have the guys that we usually have in Europe, that we usually have spread all over the world, working out here with the national team. And Cheloto preferred just one game, and then the rest of the week he's going to practice with the team. So he's going to try to take advantage of the time, because on the national team it's really hard to get that. As for the local league, the bad side of it this past week, we got to talk about the injuries, what happened in that Clásico, that black and white Clásico between Olimpia and Libertad. Some injuries that also we can connect them with the national team. I'm loving what I'm seeing from a couple of young players, especially Marcelo Perez. We got a hot striker there in Luqueño. He's been scoring 6 goals already on this Apertura, and he's very young. He's catching people's attention. Just to throw a name out there, he's top scorer of the league after 7 games, and we got so much to talk about. Obviously, Roberto, it's great to be back. It's great to see Maria back, because I want to know what she's feeling about this new Olimpia with Diego Aguirre. They got a new manager. And I want to ask you also, Roberto, about what you think, looking at Cerro Porteño and their situation. Marcelo Moreno Martins, he was also on the news this past week saying goodbye to Cerro Porteño. I don't think Cerro fans are going to miss him that much. Well, at least his goals weren't that many. So I wanted to know what you feel about what your expectations were back when he was arriving at Cerro Porteño, what he ended up being. And the way he left, really, pretty much mid-season, saying goodbye, resigning his contract, and he was earning pretty good money, Roberto, there.
Yeah, certainly. I'll let Maria go first on this one because I think going into Olympia, like certainly they are in a situation where they need to obviously prepare for the Libertadores. They're gonna they're gonna find out who their opponents are gonna be on Monday in the Libertadores draw over that Comebol. And certainly just in the way that they've been performing, we'll talk about the game against Libertad shortly, but they are still in contention for this league race. They're still in contention to win an Apertura. And I think for someone like Aguirre to really get something from this Olympia side, especially having no experience in Paraguay as a whole, I think getting a league title would be huge for a boost of experience, Maria.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe I don't know if a title will be in the talks yet. Maybe it's a little too soon, with a new coach and everything, and now that Derlis Gonzalez has been injured, one of the best players, that's also a problem for them this time. And I mean, yeah, the fact that they beat Libertad in the last game, it certainly raises expectations and hopes for the team. That they can make it into at least make it a good competition in the top of the table. So I think it's gonna be close there, but I'm not sure if they're gonna be able to win this one this time. Hopefully I'm wrong, but going with the way that the things are going right now, I see a title in their future right now. I think so far right now, I think Libertad has been pretty good. And I think they're a good contender for this title, for this Apertura title. Cerro Porteño's been doing good as well. I think I said it from the beginning. They were able to surpass this a bunch of bad situations that they encountered. So I think also that they're a good close one up there. But I think Olympia is gonna give them a good run for their money. So we'll see. It's looking good, at least, except for their least injury. I think it's Olympia has been working well with what they have, and I'm okay with how they're doing.
Yeah, and going into the Marcelo Moreno's Martins discussion, I think it's very interesting, and I like that Fede posed that question to me because I think certainly we say the word fracaso here, basically a bust, and I'd say that has been his run because I think, like you said, this was a player that had so much expectation given to him. He was a player that was obviously the top goal scorer in the World Cup qualifiers in Comebol for Bolivia, certainly, as well as paid a lot of money to get there and has already had the track record. And for him to not have the return that he expected, I think it's really not the way that they wanted to, especially when you look at, I think, last season when Roberto Morales, who was injured for the majority of that season last year, and they had the most amount of points without winning a single league title. The fact that he was still top goal scorer in the entire year, even though he was injured for the majority of the year, shows that how Marcelo Moreno wasn't really someone that was trusted. I think 6 goals in 35 games or something like that, or even more than that. I think it's like 40 games and whatnot, but still not a good return. And I think when you see someone that's already on the bench a majority of the times, you see other players like Churin and Diego Morales, Robert Morales starting at the time, behind him, I think shows that the trust was not given to him. And I think Facundo Saba understands that he kind of wants this new project to be given in a way that allows, the best players to really show up. And it's worked so far. I mean, obviously they haven't lost a single game yet under Saba in both Libertadores and in the league. So I think it's just maybe a demonstration that, they're getting rid of the deadwood. And I guess I'm for it. Like it sucks because I've always wanted to see him do well. And, obviously he's a world-renowned name for Bolivia. And I think anyone that has him would be very much happy to have someone of his caliber. But basically that's basically it, Ben. I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but I just think that he's just been a complete bust. I think he's probably the bust of the year last season. And right now, I think it's only good that Cerro can move on from him and try to utilize some of the new talent that they have. Like I said, like a Morales, look what's going on with with shooting and maybe Farinha. I mean, he's not a striker, but he's someone that is very much useful in terms of like youth. So no, I think this is a good move that Cedro is kind of moving on from.
Yeah, there's a bad side and there's a good side to it. On the bad side, it obviously sucks for the fans because the expectations. I mean, they were following that plane as it was arriving to Paraguay because they wanted to be there, give a big welcome. They wanted they wanted for this Bolivian player to be their idol. They wanted to give him that number 9 shirt and for him to own it, but he never came through really. I mean, he didn't even get the 10 goals. He almost played 50 games, and he kind of lost his spot also on the team just because he couldn't score. And the good side to it is, it talks well about the league. I mean, yeah, you got the top scorer on the qualifiers. You got a player that's playing for his national team, but it's not enough here for Paraguay for the national league. And I think that speaks well about the competition here, about the good defenders that we have. I mean, it wasn't easy for Marcelo Moreno Martins to show up here and make a difference. Maybe he even thought, just like many others thought that came before him to Paraguay, big signings like him, and I thought that, maybe at this stage of my life, I can make a difference, and I can make a difference in Paraguay, winning a lot of money and scoring a couple of goals. I'll have the starting role once I get there. And he had that with Chiqui Arce last year. I mean, Chiqui Arce stood by his side. He kept him in there, even though he wasn't scoring. That was not the situation now with this new coach, with Facundo Saba. He did not put him in that last Libertadores game. And I think that really hurt Marcelo Moreno Martins. And that's when he thought that, hey, I'm not having any time in this team. I'm losing time, and he has options. Obviously, they want to have him in Bolivia. They want to have him in Oriente Petrolero. Maybe he has a couple of options in other exotic leagues where like Cristiano Ronaldo plays. But it wasn't enough for him. It wasn't enough for here. It wasn't enough for Paraguayan football. So too bad for Marcelo Moreno Martins. Too bad for Cerro Porteño fans that were expecting a lot more from this player, especially.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we can talk about the personal side. I'm not even going to get on the personal stuff, Roberto, because on the flyer where it said the reason why he was leaving the club, it said personal reasons. Yeah, his father died last year. I totally get that stuff. But on the pitch, the player, I'm only talking about the player. He did not show up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, again, things that happen personally outside of it, that's a whole different thing. You don't know what players could be thinking. Even when they're going through tough stuff, like you said, like his father passing away, that's certainly not to our opinion to really opinionate on. But I think it's certainly, like you said, what we saw on the pitch, the good return wasn't there. Someone that didn't score not even double figures in the amount of games that he played, I think is certainly, yeah, I think Cedro fans would feel very ashamed about it. And I think now they just move on to see what they have, and who knows, maybe they can try to attract someone else for the future. So we'll definitely have to wait and see as we look into players that hopefully can indeed be impress us. Is the Paraguay national team. They'll be playing their first friendly of the year against a familiar foe in Chile. They'll be playing the Chile of a foreign national team manager, Eduardo Berizzo. He's in charge of the Chilean national side. So this is a very interesting game because certainly I think for Paraguay's case, I'm going to go to Fede on this one. I think it's, certainly a game that allows them to, they're not going to get any big powerhouses that they would typically get if you're in South America, maybe because you're not Brazil or Argentina. Obviously, the Europeans are playing the Nations League and they have their own qualifiers for the Euros. So it's difficult to get European opposition as a whole. But I think for Paraguay as a case, they want to take on the games. They want to take on the teams that they know they're going to be familiar with. They played Peru and Colombia back in November. They lost both those games. I think certainly they know that the qualifiers are coming very soon and the Copa America as well. So this is a game that I think for Paraguay's case, especially when you look at some of the players that they called up, it's not really any big changes. You do see some new faces on this side. I'm talking about, of course, Aldo Perez, the goalkeeper for Guarani. This has been a thing that Paraguay has kind of looked into now recently. Anthony Silva still getting called up at 39 years old. It's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be the starting goalkeeper during this entire process. You still have someone like Santiago Rojas, 26-year-old at Tigre. You look at someone, like I said, Aldo Perez making his first call up at 22 years old. some of the real also interesting names, hopefully we get to see him get the chance, is Ramon Sosa, someone of Talleres who had impressed at Olimpia beforehand, was impressing at Gimnasia de la Plata, and got the call up back last year. But Fede, I mean, this is a team that you talk about this beforehand. I remember the conversation that we've had beforehand is like keeping a base. You see some of this base of players, and yeah, there are some names that you think, why are they still there? Is it really the best that we have? And just also some players that are the future, like Julio Enciso, of course, leading the front line with Morales as well, kind of the two young stars, and looking at many other players as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on how you can view this Paraguay side in this big Chile, in this game against Chile?
This team has not convinced anybody yet. So obviously there is a base of players. There are players that have always been there. Gustavo Gomez, you have even Bruno Valdez has come back lately. You have those players that have always been there. But I'm not actually surprised to see new faces. You're still trying certain spots out, even though, you mentioned there the goalkeeper situation, and I do think Anthony Silva is going to be there again. Even though Aldo Perez has been called up, Angel Martinez before him, who had an experience already in Europe, and he came back to Paraguay now. Yeah, we've had a couple of young goalkeepers been called up. Even Santiago Rojas is still young, but he's on the shadow there of Anthony Silva. It's really hard to get through him. I believe he has the confidence from the coaching staff. And I want to see what goes on with the defense, even though it's always around Gustavo Gomez, who's going to play alongside with him and who's going to play on the sides. I do think that's what I'm going to look forward to seeing against Chile. Chile that's not coming in well at all to this game. As I was reading, Eduardo Berizzo, our former coach, is not doing well. He is yet to win after 7 games. And some people are saying he's got to win because the game is going to be played in Santiago. So if they don't win Paraguay, they're going to feel like they're not ready for the qualifiers. And we feel like this is a test to see just how strong we are right now, or right before starting for the points. So I want to see what goes on in the midfield also without Miguel Almiron. It's too bad we don't have him around. Yeah, he was probably going to be on the list also, but it's good time maybe to see Ramon Sosa, like you were mentioning. Maybe Matias Rojas, who's been having a really good season with Racing in Argentina. He's pretty much become the leader in that team. I don't know much about Brian Ojeda's current situation in Real Salt Lake. I don't know if you guys can tell me a little bit about him, if he's actually evolved into more of a midfield that we expect him to be in the national team. Richard Sanchez has had many chances, but he has yet to become that player that we need in that starting role. And I'm really excited about one name in particular, especially because Almiron is out. So we kind of need a leader with the ball, and that could be Caco Romero. I mean, Alejandro Romero, the times he was with the national team jersey, I loved what he brought to the team. He's a very positive dude. Besides what he does with the ball, right? He's so creative. He can make the difference with the ball, and he can also score. I love just what he brings to the national team. Also Jesus Medina. I think these are all players that are yet to win their spot, Roberto. These are all players that are fighting in between each other to win their spot. And as for the attack, this is my favorite part of the team right now, because we got Julio Enciso, so young, so much future ahead of him, and he's gonna get that starting role, I believe, especially with Derlis Gonzalez out now, and maybe alongside Robert Morales. I mean, I want Schelotto to do this. Please, Barros Schelotto, put them together. I want to see these two together, and I don't want to see it just for one game. I want to see a bunch of games with these two together. I want to see them being the combination for the national team in the qualifiers, because the Romero twins are out. They always used to be there, but they're not on this team. They haven't been called lately, even though Oscar has a very important role in Boca Juniors. He has yet to come back. They were not called. Angel Romero is yet to be called. Yeah, you know what you're going to get out of them. But hey, it's Julio Enciso's time. It's Robert Morales' time. These have been the best players as for attack-wise that I've seen lately in the Paraguayan game. And I want to see them on the national team. I want to see them play together. We saw them a couple of minutes against Ecuador, I believe, in Ciudad del Este. And that was over a year ago, before Julio Enciso even went to Brighton. And Robert Morales got injured on that game. He lost the whole year. And they're back. They were called. They were called up for this game, and I want to see it make. I want to see it happen, Maria. This has got me excited, Maria. This is what I was talking about. The young blood. This is what I want to see on this national team. It's 4 long years coming up.
Yeah, definitely. That's very true. We've been talking about how we need more young players, and this is, I think, I think this is the closest that we've ever gotten to that. And I think Schelotto knows that he needs to try out the younger people, the younger players. And I was also gonna mention, I'm excited to see how Enciso does, because now that he's got an opportunity to take over, Miron's not here, Derlis was injured. He can actually take advantage of this situation, and then I think that's great. These are the games that you use to form your team, to see what works best, and also for the players to shine in their spots. And I think that this is the opportunity for all of them to do so. Obviously, we see a little bit of mixture as well. Silva is still coming in, which I understand. He's been great this entire time. I'm not complaining about him, but you also want to give some choices, and you want to have opportunities for the younger kids to start training and actually having real minutes and experience in the field. So especially against someone like Chile, like someone that we're definitely going to be facing. I'm glad that we're going to be facing Chile, because all the other teams that in this FIFA time, they're going to be facing Saudi Arabia, some other countries that we're probably never going to play with until probably the next World Cup. So it's great that they're going to be playing against Chile. They're going to have some real experience, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the midfield as well. I know that they need a lot of work there, especially with a lot of players now that are out and are not in this game. So it's time for a revamp, and I think that Schelotto knows that, so he's doing that right now. Like I said, Julio Enciso looks like he's gonna have a great time. So I'm looking forward to seeing this game, and we'll see what happens.
We will definitely see what happens. I think, of course, yeah, like you said, Fede, like looking at Brian Ojeda, he's really hasn't had. I think he's played like 3 games for Real. So like he's been starting. He hasn't really been the main target guy, but he's been playing. So that's something that I think is trustworthy over there in Utah under Pablo Mastroeni, the head coach. So he's someone that is getting the experience.
The other one is Andres Cubas, right? He's playing also in Canada, I believe.
Yeah, in Vancouver. That's right. Yeah. So you have players that are playing well. Like you said, Matias Rojas playing well at Racing. You saw also Caco Romero playing well in Al Tawaan over there in Saudi Arabia, and just many other players that are trying to show up. I think what's interesting here, and just looking at the squad here, you do see a mixture of youth in a way. A lot of players in their mid to early to mid 20s in the midfield, with the exception of one player in the forward line, Avalos at 32.
Not in defense, Roberto. Not in defense.
No, and I think we know this because I think we're set in defense. I think we have too much depth in defense. We've always said that with Gomez, Alonso, Balbuena, Robert Rojas, Alderete, Blas Riveros, another one as well. They're set on there. So I think it's up to the midfield to see what team will get into that. And like you said, Maria, yeah, I think someone like Enciso, the youngest player on this squad, 19 years old, he's kind of the gem of this scene, the jewel, as we say in Paraguay, La Joya. I think he's the one that wants to take advantage of it all, because he's basically the main star, or at least is going to try to be the main star for this national team moving forward for the next 10 years or even 15 years. I think he wants to take that opportunity to hopefully assure himself of wanting to be a starter. And yeah, like you said as well, Fede, I think him and Morales, they worked so well back in that Ecuador game last year in Ciudad del Este, exactly a year ago, actually, if we talk about it at the time of recording. Now, hopefully now we get a redemption a year later over there in Santiago de Chile. That hopefully, I mean, look, if they can get a win over there in Chile, I think that would be fantastic. It's a side that doesn't really win a lot. They won 3 games last year against Ecuador, Mexico, and UAE. But if they can get a good result and hopefully snatch a win against a side that, I think I agree with Maria, is kind of up to the level of what Paraguay is, the side that they really are going to be facing in the qualifiers for those spots to qualify. I think if they're able to get a result to really reassure themselves of confidence, I think it would be great for them. And in a way, I think it'd be very funny to see that against the former manager in Berizzo, managing a lot of these players. But that's also a tough test as well, because this is, a manager that has managed a majority of these players beforehand. So obviously it's not unknown to him. I'm sure he'll set up in the way that he wants to really know his best players against the players that he used to manage. So definitely will be a tough game. But I think overall, when you look at what they have at their disposal, I think it's very much a game that hopefully could be winnable. And again, if you win away at home in Chile, I think it's in a place where they typically do win sometimes. They don't win all the time, but they do get results there historically. I think that would be very good in terms of boosting their chances moving forward. So we'll definitely wait and see what happens
in that game, Roberto. In that game against Ecuador, that we got a taste of Julio Enciso and Robert Morales together, they played alongside with Derlis Gonzalez, because Derlis has played so much with the national team. He has the pedigree. He knows what it takes. So he was going to lead the way. Unfortunately, Derlis Gonzalez is out. He's going to be out pretty much most of the year with a very important injury. And also Lorenzo Melgarejo. We still don't know how long he's going to take. Apparently, his injury is not as concerning as Derlis Gonzalez is, but those are two players that I believe can be there with Robert Morales, with Julio Enciso. I think they're going to need a little bit more of a player like that with a little bit more of experience. I mean, they're still very young to take over, I believe, but it is nice that Cheloto wants to mix that, just like you were saying. He's trying to mix in players that have tried to get to us to the World Cup the last 2 times around, and this might be their last chance.
Yeah, I think it might be their last chance at all. I think, certainly with other players coming up, and I think Schelotto knows that there are so many other players that are going to be coming up in terms of importance for the national team, youngsters, wherever they may be. I think some of these players need to understand that this is their opportunity to take advantage, because if it's not going to be them, it could be someone else. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on Monday. As we switch gears to what's been going on in the local league. Obviously, we do have some games this weekend happening, because obviously the international break is occurring. There's still games occurring in the league. You got games like today, Guarani against Guarani. On the weekend, you also have Cerro Porteño against Nacional, a Barrio Vero derby, the derby between two sides from the same neighborhood. Ameliano against Olimpia, Sportivo Lugueño Tacuaru. On Sunday, Resistencia Sportivo Trinidense. And then on Monday, Libertad against General Caballero of Juan León Mallorquín. So I wanted to talk about the first game that we spoke about, that we saw on the weekend, was the Olimpia Libertad game. This was the game that I think, Maria, everyone was talking about how this could be the deciding league right here. And it almost went the way of Libertad. They scored early from a dubious free kick, and a mistake from, obviously Zarate fouling the Libertad player, Hector Tito Villalba, scoring the first goal. But then they all turned it around in the second half. Montenegro getting the goal in the 37th minute. And then Facundo Brueda of Argentina, getting the goal in the 95th minute over there in Para Uno to boost the overall confidence for Olimpia. And like you said, yes, you did talk about them maybe not going for this league title, but look at the table, Maria. I mean, they're 4 points shy of Libertad. They still have to play the likes of Guarani. I mean, Cedro, we'll see what happens to them. But, Libertad could slip up like that. And if Olimpia could take advantage over the weekend, then that cuts the gap to 1 point. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hear Fede's case as well, but I wouldn't give up on this Olimpia side just yet for this league, honestly. And just in the same way that I don't think Libertad are the front runners to win this yet as well. I think it's too early to say that anyway.
Yeah, I think definitely it's a little too early to tell, and maybe, the expectations are still there for Olimpia. But there's just there has been so many things that had gone on in the last couple of weeks that probably will make a difference for the team. You know, the injuries, the defensive side still having its, issues, and the coach. So I think there's a lot of things there that might, not be on Olympia's side, but I guess, they could work around it. I never know. You never know. The future is always it's always unpredictable. So they are at the top of the table. So I think that's a good sign. They were able to beat the likes of Libertad and Cerro Porteño. So it's just gonna be a tough one, and if they are concentrated and continue to work on what they need to work on, then they can probably get there. I'm not too sure if there are title winners this time around. Contenders maybe, yes, but I'm not sure about winners.
I think it hurts a lot, Maria, that they lost Luis Gonzalez. That was their star. That was their best player, and they're not gonna have him back for this tournament. They're gonna lose him probably for the group stage also of the Libertadores. That's where Olimpia fans were like thinking, maybe we can sign somebody, maybe we can bring somebody to replace that Luis Gonzalez. But there's still a lot of lawsuits going on. Olimpia owes a lot of money still, so they are even still yet banned. I believe they cannot sign anybody for the Libertadores. They can't bring anybody for the Apertura.
Now they owe $1 million to FIFA too, so that's another trouble.
That's just money on top of money that they got to give back to people, and contracts that people are obviously demanding from Olimpia. That's a situation that's been going on for years, and they did a really good job of keeping Derlis Gonzalez, because by the end of last year, Derlis Gonzalez was already at top of his level, and he had come back to the national team. He was going to be very important on this national team, like I was saying before, and even more for Olimpia. I think they don't have a player to replace him, so they're going to have to change maybe even the way they're playing. But the good thing is Diego Aguirre has just gotten here, so he can start out fresh and new. Just like you were saying, I don't know what he's going to do in defense, because again, Luis Zarate with a big mistake in defense, giving away the 1-0, like Roberto was saying, to Libertad, just having problems with the ball on his left side, and that's not the first time it happened to him on this season. He got the opportunities, but he has not taken them. So you don't know what he's gonna do there with the defense. He's got a lot of injured players also that need to come back. That he needs the squad healthy, but they won a big one, Roberto. I mean, they won at last minute, and they won it in style with their big signing at the beginning of the year. Bruera coming in, he was looking mad, really being that last sub, I believe, because when Derlis Gonzalez comes out of the game, Diego Aguirre doesn't put the confidence on Bruera. He puts the confidence on Manuel Romero, a young player that has been coming in lately, but he did not have a good game against Libertad. So pretty much Bruera had to wait for those last 15, 20 minutes against Libertad to come in and make a difference on where he knows where to make a difference, playing on those air balls and getting that opportunity from the corner on that last play, and that made a difference for Olimpia. They won 2-1, and they won a big match. Just to give a message out there to Libertad that they're still in it, and to the rest of the teams that can probably still fight it. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Guarani. They're building something important. Federico Santander has yet to get the starting role, but that's a player they brought from Europe too. Make that team even stronger. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Guarani. I think they're a contender also just because of the level they showed lately. We got so many games ahead still. Cerro Porteño is waking up. So I think this title race just got open because Libertad lost, because Libertad was pretty much taking over. And Libertad also got their injuries. Hugo Martinez in midfield, unfortunately, is out. We don't know how many games, but he'll probably be out the rest of the season, like Derlis Gonzalez for Olimpia. And the other one is, like I mentioned before, is Lorenzo Malgarejo. Those are really hard players to replace for Daniel Garnero, their head coach. He's not a coach that likes to mix it up much. When the team is winning, he doesn't change up pretty much his players, but he's going to have to do it now. And those are very important players he's gonna miss on that team.
Very much big important players. I think Cedro also getting the late win. It was a dramatic game over there in Juan Leo Mallorquin. They were down 2-0, And then they turned it around with Churin being kind of the standout player, getting the assist for the Zamudio goal, and then the Carrizo goal back in the 69th minute. So yeah, they're in there as well. They haven't lost a single game. And yes, they're 5 points behind Libertad, but they are still unbeaten under Facundo Sava, like you said. I mean, I guess I want to pose a question to all you guys. I mean, out of all the teams that are really in this kind of race, we still got, obviously, Libertad top of the league, 4 points ahead of Guarani, Olimpia, and 6 points ahead. Sorry, I got my math wrong. 4 points ahead of Guarani and Olimpia, and 5 points ahead of Cerro Porteño. I mean, Pedro, I'll go to you on this one. If you're one of those teams that are still fighting for this league title, who would you, if you're a fan of one of these teams, which one would you feel more confident about in this entire league race going? I mean, yeah, we still got a long way to go, but if you had to choose one team that you feel the fan base should feel very much confident about, who is it?
Yeah, I think it's now or never for these teams, right? I think after seeing what Libertad went through, after seeing that Libertad on the first match that they faced, they had problems against a big team. This shows that this team is not unbeatable, and they can have the problems. This game against Olimpia, it had such a speed, it had such a dramatic end also to it that you saw a team under pressure, and Libertad doesn't usually have that pressure against small teams, especially when they play at home. So it's going to be on these big games where they're going to make a difference, or it's going to be a tight race against the other teams. Cerro Porteño still has to play them in a couple of games. I believe Nacional, Guarani are all teams that can take points away from this Libertad squad. So I like it. I like it that we have a race, because Olimpia fans were really into it. This past match, they pretty much filled their stadium just like they did in the Super Clásico. But you can see that there's an important rivalry there lately with Libertad, especially because they took a couple of their players, and I believe they're still the team with the biggest budget in the Paraguayan game, even though their president has had economic problems lately. To me, there's still a number one candidate, Roberto, and I'm going to keep on that. I'm going to stay with my story that I threw at the beginning of the season. My number one candidate is still Libertad, and I see Olimpia kind of waking up, especially with this new head coach. But other than that, I don't think it's going to change much around. I think Libertad is going to keep on getting their winning going on, because in this game against Olimpia, their subs were pretty much around their injuries, around the red card that I feel Oviedo got. He couldn't do anything in that second half. I mean, it was all up for Olimpia, and Olimpia took care of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one to pick out yet, because like you guys said, now that Libertad lost, it kind of opened up the race a little bit, and there's so many good options so far. Guarani is also, like Pedro said, it's coming up. It's creeping up to the top, and it's exciting because we haven't heard from them in a while. And Cerro is been doing pretty good. They're still down there a little bit, but they're also coming up. Anything can happen, honestly. This is the Paraguayan league, and there's surprises every weekend. So it's an exciting one. I think that Libertad will probably stay up there for a while. They're still pretty far ahead from all of them, and for us to be saying that they don't say that they can't take the title. So it is still a tough one. I'm not sure who I can pick, so I'm gonna have to not answer that part of the question yet.
It's early to say. I understand. I get Fede's point of being more confident, because I agree. I think Libertad, when you look at the team that they have on paper, they should be the favorites to win it. But I think just when you've seen these type of results, you think, yeah, they could be beaten, and you saw that with what Olimpia can do. We'll see what happens when they still take on Cerro. That's another big game in terms of how the league could be swinged another way. But I agree. I think Libertad are still the favorites to win this league, not by much, but I think they'll still be clear favorites. I don't think they're going to blow everyone away like they've had, I think, last season, but I think it'll be a much more tighter affair. So I'm definitely excited to see what happens for the remainder of this Apertura race as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Maria Britos, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.